Hey, this is Jesse, and I'm here to announce that I have created a special blog and Facebook page for my current work in progress, which is a novel called Protean Man. Protean Man is it's a dark, dystopian science fiction, gritty technological thriller. It straddles a lot of different areas within the science fiction genre. It's set in the year 2099, and the setting is that pretty much corporations have completely taken over, which I know isn't the most novel idea in science fiction, but it, what I'm working with here is that all aspects of life are corporate controlled. And so that means no matter what job you have, you work for one of these top corporations, and there are four of them. The main corporation, which is Protean Industries, the second largest, their competitor, which is Ephemeris, and then there's Omnert Enterprises, and then Anywhere Holdings and Securities. And so politicians, everyone are basically working for these companies. So the president of the United States, or the United Sectors, as I call it in the book, because there's no more states left now. The whole country is divided up by time zone quadrants, and then the states themselves are now called sectors and given a number. So Sector 0 is Washington, D.C., and then Sector 1 starts way up in Maine and then works its way down across the country. So the president himself is a Protean Industries employee. And so all the governors, senators, members of Congress, mayors, also they work for these different corporations, even the Supreme Court justices. So judges, lawyers. Each corporation has their own school systems, their own court systems. Everything is totally just segregated that way. By what I refer to in the book as the corporatocracy. So there's no more real divisions along political lines. There's no political parties even left. None of the racial strife or any of that stuff that we see today. Now it's just my corporation is better than your corporation. That's it. Also, not the most novel idea in science fiction, but everyone lives in these gigantic cities now, which are called civilian centers. And outside of the civilian centers, all the small towns and stuff have basically fallen into just disrepair because everybody left and moved. So these big civilian centers now, based around places like LA, New York, Seattle, but built on top of those places. So they're completely different now. Each one is divided up into districts. So you have like an industrial district where all the warehouses are. You have a residential district where everyone lives. And then the center of these civilian centers, you have just pure entertainment, touristy type stuff. Now the areas outside of these are called corporate zones, and the only people that live out there are the people that just never made it to the big cities for whatever reasons. And in the book, it's you can picture in your mind. I've taken a lot of inspiration from like Mad Max, The Road Warrior. So a lot of people living out there just wearing rags, and they all have this weird way of speaking because they never went to school. So instead of saying look, they'll say eyes. So they'll say like eyes me means look at me, things like that. And then of course there are the archetypical bandits and road pirates running around out there attacking people and living by might is right. So that's the overall setting. It's also very not only corporate and bureaucratized, but there's it's pretty technological as well. So all the vehicles are solar powered and they're hovercrafts using this like magnetic repulsive technology that I just sort of dreamed up, where they they use like a magnetic pulse to kind of lift themselves up, and then of course engines to power them forward. So no combustible engines or anything like that. Everyone that works for a corporation, they get an implant in their head, so they're connected to what's called the neural net, and everyone also gets their personal AI assistant. So the main character is a guy named Gunnar Rourke, and he comes from a long military family, and he works for Protean Industries. So he's in the Protean military, which they call asset protection, and he's in the land division, so basically the army. Um, his neural net assistant is EOS, and the book begins with him because of the status of his family and everything. Excuse me. He has his own custom made machine that he drives. It's like an old style hot rod Corvette, but no tires. It has the flat metal discs in the front and the back, which are the magnetic propulsions discs. And at the beginning of the book, he's kind of bringing up the rear of this convoy of Protean products that are being transported. I believe it's from LA to Phoenix, Arizona, but of course they're called different things in the book with the sectors for the states and then civilian center number, whatever. And on the way, he gets attacked by some pirates, and they're riding actually hover cycles. They've actually got their hands on some real technology, but he wipes them out and then moves on, and that is sort of the intro to the novel. Also, every chapter starts off with what's called an hourly updated briefing. So every hour, day or night, if you're an employee for these companies, you get fed this into your neural net, and it just kind of symbolizes the hyper commercialized society that we're evolving into. So, and also, this ridiculous 24 news hour cycle where, or 24-hour news cycle where every little thing is a story, even if there's nothing there, no details. So these hubs, as they're called, they're fed out, with these little tidbits of a news story. They're very uniform, so they're presented the same way every time, and each one is then sponsored by a different product. And since the Protein Industries is the main company of the book, they're all owned by Protein Industries. So it's been a very challenging story to write so far because I have to keep coming up with all these crazy product names and company names and all that. But it's, having it all done or having such a big chunk of it done now is pretty satisfying. And I think it makes the novel very unique. So I've been rambling on and on. So what happens? Well, Gunnar, after his little jaunt in the beginning, he decides to take a vacation. And this book is very specific about its language. So it's called an extended consensual absence. So there's a lot of corporate speak and things like that in the book. So if you like language and, you like Kurt Vonnegut, Isaac Asimov, Harlan Ellison, that kind of stuff. Those are all my influences, and I'm really leaning into that as I'm writing the book. So that's in there. If you like that wordplay and that use of language, that's kind of makes you think. It's funny, and things have double meanings. So I guess that leads into Orwellian territory. So he's on his vacation with his wife Daphne. And then a bunch of things just start happening. There is an older gentleman who's a senator from Georgia. His name is DuPont. He gets caught up in this conspiracy. He hooks up with this shadowy figure. Not really sure at the beginning who he's working for or what's going on. And he gets drawn into basically turning against Protein Industries, and he is a lifelong Protean guy. But he's doing it because he thinks that he's actually helping the company in the long run, because he thinks that there's some sabotage going on. Meanwhile, he's actually being set up for sabotage, but he does not know that. So he gets on a plane and he basically hijacks it himself, and using some, technology to hide from the net and everything, he basically vanishes. He disappears. So the whole company, is kind of freaked out. Now, at the same time, at the beginning of the novel, it's announced that Ephemeris is buying or merging with Anywhere, those two companies. So you have the second largest company and then the fourth largest coming together, and then they're just getting bigger. And so all the administrative people at Protean, of course, are freaking out. They're getting paranoid. They're like, okay, the power dynamics are shifting. So that's going on. Then the senator disappears, so that makes it worse. Then there is a Protean employee named Elvira, spelled LV-RA, all caps. And she is this performance diva singer, basically Lady Gaga for the year 2099. And she is on this tour. Her hit album is called You Know Why, and the hit song off it is called You, and which I actually wrote lyrics for this song, and they're totally just ridiculous and repetitive and poppy. But she hears about the senator disappearing, so she kind of cops an attitude and says, okay, well, I'm not going to fly then. I want the military to escort me to my last few tour dates. Now, at the end of her tour, she is supposed to take a shuttle up to the moon, where Protean Industries has a lunar colony, because they're battling over the geopolitical rights of the moon up there. So, of course, and this is like a record setting thing that no one's ever done before, and everybody loves her. So all the brass at Protean Industries are like, okay, we got to do it. So poor Gunnar gets called in off of his vacation, and he has to go and escort her. And where I'm at in the novel right now is he left, he went to the closest base, got the Raven, got into a cargo plane, and then flew over to Texas, is where all this is taking place. And Gunnar's based in California, Los Angeles. So flies over to where she's just gets finished with he fly to a base over in Texas. Then he meets his team of people that have been specially picked. He gets 3 more what are called savants that work for Protean Industries. And then they drive to the civilian center, or fly, as it were, in their convoy, and they're picking her up there after her performance. So I've gotten to the point where they're at the civilian center. They've met the director of the place, who works for a different corporation, and then they've met Elvira's management and her personal security, and then they meet her, which is a moment that's really, really built up to in the book. And her manager and her, I've managed to kind of create some very interesting personalities there. And then from there, Gunnar will be watching her perform. That'll be the next chapter I'm working on. And I'll be describing her in a lot more detail, and just the power that she wields. And from there, that's when things get nuts. Also, behind the scenes, the shadowy figure that has been talking to Senator DuPont, he has been manipulating this really just insane, huge, violent guy who lives out in the wastelands named Screth. Obviously, that's not his real name, but that's just what he goes by. And he's got a little group of people that follow him around. And so he's being pulled into this whole thing too. And one of the major linchpins of the novel is that there was this legislation passed in the year 2041 called the Anti-Atoma Alterations Act, which forbids any work that could be done by a human being automated, so basically to preserve jobs. Although in this setting, there are what are called mech attendants that a lot of people have that just do household chores and things like that. So, they serve as maids and butlers. But all the factory jobs, all the customer service jobs, blah, 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 that's all protected. So the creation of robots for any purpose of that sort is highly illegal. And this shadowy figure he's creating this army of basically robotic soldiers, which completely violates that whole thing. So during the escort with Gunnar and Elvira, all of that is going to come together. That is going to be the centerpiece of the novel, a huge sort of explosion of violence. And then from there, it's going to get pretty interesting. The only way I can describe it is Rourke is basically going to go on like a Heart of Darkness type journey. And where that journey leads, I'm still not actually 100% certain, which is rare for me because when I write, I usually know exactly where I'm going. I know what the end is going to be, or at least have a very rough but firm idea. Here, I'm not sure at all. It could go all sorts of ways. So the reason why I created this blog is because I'm very excited about the writing. It's really different than anything else I've done before. Really challenging, strains my brain, but I want to share some excerpts. I want to, create some artwork for it. Throw that up there. Just using AI generated stuff and things like that. But just to give a little more flavor and idea of what the characters look like, what the setting looks like. Also, I've been having a really good time feeding little excerpts to ChatGPT and getting feedback. And ChatGPT it's awesome the way it's evolved. Like, I mean, I fed it some of my, because it really loves the dystopian vibe. I don't know. Maybe that's just part of its programming or something. Because some of my other writing, it doesn't react as strongly to, but this stuff, it's really goes wild. Like I fed it some stuff and it came back. Oh, hell yes. Like, and it makes all these jokes and quips and stuff. So I might just start cutting and pasting some of that stuff and throwing it up on the blog just for fun. So I just want to really see if I can build people's interest in the book. And at a certain point, I'll start shopping around, trying to find some publishers and see if I can get a commercial contract out of it. If not, I will just publish it through Amazon. But either way, I'd like to get a group of people just interested in it, because I think this is something that really really stands apart from everything else I've ever done. So anyway, link will be in the description. Check out the blog, like, subscribe, share. I'm going to attach it to a Facebook page as well. So if you're on Facebook, you can check out everything there, which will be shared. So we'll see what happens next. See you next time.